Well, Razorback fans, Razorback football actually looked pretty good offensively for the first time in SEC play. They get it done, and they get it done in a big way against Mississippi State. So let's talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Neighbors. I am also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday afternoon starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Hope everybody had a wonderful weekend, which, to be honest, if you're a Razorback fan, you had a pretty good weekend. It's hard to find things to complain about. I know we'll look at where Arkansas is kind of looking at in the SEC football-wise, but also talk about basketball because that was fun. But either way, starting off with Arkansas, Mississippi State. Last week, going into this, I continue to talk about why this was a must-win, have-to-win game. I think everybody understood that. Everybody was on the same page. And even going into that game in Starkville in the morning, I felt good, but I didn't feel great. You know what I'm saying? I felt like there was still some things that could go really wrong for Arkansas. But luckily for the Razorbacks, the whole Mississippi State being the worst defense in the SEC and one of the worst defenses in the country held true for this one. Arkansas wins 58-25 over the Mississippi State Bulldogs and had, without question, their most productive and their best offensive game to date, production-wise. We'll go through some of the stats and talk about some of the things that'll mean and all that. But Taylen Green, for instance, had his best day as a Razorback, and I don't even think how you can argue it any other way. Taylen Green goes 23 of 29 for 314 yards, 5 touchdowns, and only 1 interception. And that interception was actually just one of those freak plays where Andrew Armstrong fell down and got tangled up a little bit, and it bounced up in the air and got a pick, but he completed 79% of his passes. So great game for him in the passing side of things. And then on top of that, he had 8 carries for 79 yards as well as a rushing touchdown. So if you want to look at those averages, folks, doing your math there, it's about 10 yards a pop. So Taylen Green was extremely effective and extremely consistent and extremely good in this one. The other thing, of course, was about Braylon Russell because Jaquindon Jackson was not going to be playing in this game. I think everybody understood that. Everybody knew it. And it was going to be about letting the horse eat, as Sam Pittman said last Monday about Braylon Russell, which I'll even admit I was a little bit skeptical just because I'm like, okay, you can say that all day long, but unless you actually mean it and unless it actually happens, it can go a lot of different directions. But they definitely fed him. 16 carries, 175 yards. Did not get into the end zone, but he averaged 11 yards a carry. And also granted that 75 of that 100 yards came on that final run that he had where he cramped up a little bit. So thankfully that's what's it look to be. That's all it is. But big game out of him. Even Rashad Dubinion, who has just been kind of MIA for a lot of times this season and has struggled a little bit at times when he has got in. He almost had 100 yards. He had 11 carries, 98 yards, and a touchdown. So great performance at him. And, going back to the receiving part of it with Taylen Green, and, the way that he was able to get 314 yards. Because, listen, 23 completions for 314 yards is awesome. But I love the distribution of the touchdowns and not only the touchdowns, but also the passes themselves. Like Andrew Armstrong led the team in receiving. But he only had 4 catches for 76 yards. Luke Hasz, good to see you back, Luke Hasz, 4 catches for 59 yards and 2 touchdowns. So how about that from the sophomore that was a preseason All-SEC player? But then you got Isaac Teslaw, 3 catches, 51 yards. Rashad Dubinion, 3 catches, 22 yards. Andreas Poski, 3 catches for 19 yards, 2 of those being touchdowns. All right, whatever works. Whatever that means. Fine by me. Tyrone Broden, 2 catches for 33 yards. Isaiah Satania, 2 catches for 16 yards. You even had 1 catch from Jordan Anthony, who caught a touchdown pass for 27 yards. And then Braylon Russell had 1 catch for 11 yards. So you're talking about 23 completions, to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 different players. That's pretty effective. That's spreading the love out a little bit. And offensively, it was just Arkansas. You can't look too much into it because Mississippi State is that bad defensively. But I'm also looking at it where, hey, you went in and you did what you were supposed to do. Okay? It wasn't perfect all the time. Arkansas did have, that interception. They did have some things that, you don't want to see happen in games like this. But overall, they did a great job offensively. And even the special teams, too. Shipley, shout out to him. I know people were really suspect by him and all of that. But, hey, goes 3 for 3 from field goal range and does his thing. I think one of the most interesting things about this game, too, folks, is that Arkansas, won big, so you're not going to sit here and make too much of a big deal out of it. But the fact is that Arkansas went 0 of 7 on third downs, okay? Arkansas is the number 1 third down conversion team in the SEC. And they have been pretty consistently all year. But they went 0 for 7 on third downs today. But what's funny is that they are dead last in the SEC in red zone offense. Well, they went 9 for 9 in red zone offense. They were 100%, 9 for 9. So how about that? I mean, you can't say much more than that in what the Razorback offense was doing. Now, we'll spend a little time on the defense too, because I want to make some points about this in particular with the Razorback defense. The defense gave up 471 yards, 309 passing yards, 162 rushing yards. Had a lot of bad penalties, pass interferences and whatnot. They did get to the quarterback and had 4 sacks on the day. So they did have some things that went positive and went their way. I don't think I've ever seen a team like Mississippi State have more goal line things happen to them, like plays that needed to be reviewed and just could not get into the end zone, whether it was a fumble, whether it was a pick, whether it was a penalty. I still think that was the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life, is that wide receiver for Mississippi State catching the ball and throwing the ball into the stands in celebration and getting a penalty, but then getting it pushed back. It was just extremely dumb. So, Arkansas benefited a lot from that, but I just believe that with the way that Arkansas's defense played, people are going to look at those yardage and they're going to look at that production, and they're going to be like, oh, this is bad. What happened? What happened to the defense? What happened to the defense? Well, here's what I put it up to, folks. I'm not making excuses, and I'm not trying to justify the performance that was made by Arkansas's defense, because that you definitely want to play better than that. However, they still did, it's about matchups. A lot of it's about matchups. Sometimes you're just going to go into games where you give up a lot of yardage to certain offenses, to certain teams, and you don't want to. It's not like you're trying to. You want to do a good job defensively, but it's going to happen. I mean, we've seen really good teams in the SEC, especially good defensive teams, give up points, give up yardage to teams that you think like they shouldn't. They shouldn't be giving it up like that. So either way, it's fine. Now, if it becomes because people start taking up the LSU game, which I still don't think that was much of a defensive problem as it was an offensive problem. But you think about 34 points in that game and then 25 points in this. What's going on? Blah blah blah. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. Because now it's about what you're going to do moving forward. And you have the Ole Miss Rebels coming to town this Saturday. Should be a great game. Always is, for all the weirdest and craziest of reasons. Arkansas is undefeated against Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin as their head coach here in Fayetteville. So I know they're going to try to keep that route going. But overall, my last thing I'll say about this particular game, you did what you were supposed to do, and that's all I'm going to ask for. I'm not going to be upset. I'm not going to be mad. I'm not going to go in there and try to really, nitpick at all the small things there for what could be a problem or whatever. You went on the road to an SEC team's place, and you won 58-25. Sign me up. I'll take that all day long. I'm never going to apologize for that. I'm never going to be too mad about that. So you're sitting at 3-2, folks, in the SEC. You are 1 game, 1 win away from bowl eligibility, which I felt like a lot of people were thinking that was going to be tough this year. If you look at Arkansas, I think the over-under win total was about 5.5, something. Some maybe even have 4.5. So you've already pretty much clinched that as long as you win just one of these last 4 games, which I think you will. And here's another thing too, and I'm not going to try to get too much into it, but Louisiana Tech, whatever, you should win that game no matter what. But you get Ole Miss at home, bye week, Texas at home, Louisiana Tech, and then Missouri on the road. Missouri looks like trash. I know that game doesn't matter what they look like because Arkansas seems to lose it every time. But I'm just saying they're not the top 10 team that everyone thought they were before the year started. Ole Miss, they struggled a little bit this year. I mean, this was supposed to be Lane Kiffin's best team that he's had at Ole Miss. And they're really good. I mean, it's not like I'm saying they're crap. But they've lost 2 games, and they've looked very suspect, especially on offense. Defense, they've actually been better. They've been more of a defensive team than an offensive team. But they're very beatable. And then Texas, who's still really good, and I'm not saying Arkansas is going to beat them, but Georgia really handled him, and Vanderbilt gave them a run for their money. Now, Texas has a bye week this week, and then they get Florida the next week, and then you get a bye. But I'm just saying, if Arkansas can get through this game, they can get through this game with Ole Miss and win this one. That Texas game, suddenly a lot of Razorback fans are going to be walking tall and feeling confident. And I'm going to be one of them. I'm just going to be honest. But you know what? That wasn't the only thing that happened this past week, and I got Razorback fans pumped up. Basketball's going on. So we'll talk about that and what I saw from Arkansas's scrimmage, exhibition game, whatever you want to call it, against the number 1 team in the country, the Kansas Jayhawks, here on the other side of the break. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, all you Razorback fans, you know that you are going out there and you're trying to make some money, and especially with the NFL and the college football season, we'll do it with FanDuel, which is America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers get $5 who can bet $5, and then they get $150 in bonus bets back if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out all the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com today to join. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet, guaranteed. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, man. Okay, so I'm going to try to keep this, hopefully people understand my sarcasm and some of this stuff that I'm going to be bringing up. But Arkansas basketball, man, exhibition game against Kansas Jayhawks, the #1 team in the land, preseason #1. Bill Self's in the house. This is a game that students were camping out for, and had a huge amount of fans that showed up there, 8 p.m. at Bud Walton Arena. Just a lot of hype and a lot of excitement surrounding it, but a lot of uncertainty too, and especially for me. Because to me, I'm like, the only thing I've got to see from this team was that deal down in Pine Bluff, and that was not much. Not much to go on, not much to see. And it was one of those things where, okay, Jonas Adu's not going to play, one of Arkansas's best players. And then you had Nelly Davis, who was I didn't think he was going to play nearly as much as he did, but he did. But you also, he's your best player, so you didn't really know what you're getting out of that. And then you also throw in the mix that Hunter Dickinson from Kansas wasn't going to play. So I had no idea what to expect. I just wanted to see if we could get a little taste of what this is going to be about. And how exciting that was. For those of you who watched on TV, I'm sure you enjoyed it. But, man, those of you who were there in person definitely got a lot of fun out of that. And there's just a few takeaways from it. Really don't want to take. But I got to start with the guy that, man, Boogie Fland. Boogie Fland. I knew he was good. All these players are good. You know what I'm saying? All of them are 5-star McDonald's All-American, NBA caliber players. All of them are good. But it's about who stands out and who's able to get the mix up there the most. Boogie Fland was without question the one I came away from the game and just being wowed by. 22 points, 8 of 15 from the field. He had 5 assists, 2 rebounds, 6 steals in 35 minutes of play. He also turned the ball over twice. But incredible. 35 minutes, 6 steals, So 22 points, 6 steals, 5 assists, 2 rebounds, and 2 turnovers. I mean, that dude is electric. His defense was incredible. And same thing with DJ Wagner. DJ Wagner and Boogie Fland's defense, that's not something you're going to see in the stat sheet, but both of them were playing incredible, tough defense that made it really difficult on everybody. DJ Wagner, 24 points, led the team in scoring. Went 8 of 12 from the field, 2 of 4 from three-point land. And he was also able to get 4 rebounds in this game in a steal. So also turned the ball over twice. So just, great stuff out of him. Both those guys were really impressive overall. And can't forget about Big Z. Big Z, by the way, Wagner also played 35 minutes. Big Z played 30 minutes in this game. And, it's always interesting to see what you get out of him. He's 7'2", 7'3", whatever it is. You've heard he can make threes. You've heard he can do things, like to what a cost and how effective can he be? Well, he goes in there, he gets 18 points, goes 5 of 10 from the field, and also is able to get 6 rebounds, 4 assists out of him. Did turn the ball over 3 times, too much, but then also had a block shot. That was Arkansas's only block shot was his. So still, 30 minutes of play, you can hit the threes. He was perfect from the free throw line, and that's the other thing as a team for Arkansas. 23 of 28 from the free throw line. That's 82%. That's good stuff. That is nice. Love seeing that type of thing. So yeah, really good from the free throw line and really got it going on. So yeah, those were the guys that really made their presence known. Carter Knox also had 9 points in this game, 25 minutes of play. He had 4 rebounds and also was able to get an assist out of him. And then you had John L. Davis, Nelly Davis. He did not play well. He went 2 of 9 from the field, 1 of 6 from 3, had 5 points, had 3 rebounds and an assist, but also 3 turnovers, but did have 2 steals. So I'm not making too big of a deal out of it, but it was definitely like he's still going to be your best player. You know what I'm saying? He's still going to be your best player. He didn't have a nice game, and I'm sure that he really wanted to make sure he had a nice game too, but it's not the end of the world. He'll get better. He's been dealing with injury, and he's working through it, but we know what he's capable of. And honestly, I feel like it's a good thing. Maybe I'm looking at it weirdly, but I think it's a good thing when you can look at your roster and see that your 2 best players, at least coming into the year, who have been more likely Nelly Davis and Jonas Adu, one didn't play and the other one didn't play well at all, and you were still able to get this going. So he'll be fine though. You can see where his talent's at. And also shout out to Trevin Brazil, former Razorback as if he's not on the team anymore. Former Razorback, then came back because he entered in the transfer portal, then untransferred. But he played 21 minutes in this game, had 2 steals out of him. You were able to get 5 rebounds from Trevin Brazil. Even an assist out of him too, 5 points. And he didn't shoot a 3. Arkansas went 6 of 24 from 3, so that's 25%. That's not very good. But Boogie Fland and John L. Davis both went 1 of 6. So it wasn't very efficient there. Carter Knox went 0 for 2, but 3 of 7 from the rest of the way. But Adu Thiero played only 17 minutes, got 2 points out of him. So yeah, it was just so much fun. So much fun to watch, and so exciting to see how this all plays out and how it all potentially could play out. But a few takeaways, though, because, again, it's an exhibition game. You can't say one way or the other, oh, this is how amazing they're going to be. It's an exhibition game. Still got a lot of growing to do, so let's not freak out about it. But a couple of things from the game itself, from the atmosphere. One, I'm gonna be honest. I'm extremely disappointed in the students. That was an absolutely tragic showing on your part. There was the student section lower deck was almost full, but the upper deck was not even full. It was the only space that was empty. Everywhere else it was full, and I just don't understand that at all. I get that it's Friday night at 8 p.m., but if all the other fans can go, you're telling me that, and I'm not even saying it had to be packed full, but the entire upper deck be empty? Come on now. Y'all have to do better than that. That's trash. That's garbage. And you can't you can't have that again. But the atmosphere building into the game with the big light show and all that was awesome. They made it great for the Razorback fans and to get involved. The energy was high. Everybody was excited about it. Everybody was pumped up about it. And then to really drive the point home of seeing John Calipari in Razorback apparel coaching on the sidelines is still going to be a weird thing. I won't be able to get used to it ever at all, but I'm happy. I'm happy it's happening, and I'm happy it's it starts really well. Arkansas plays TCU in an exhibition game this Friday night down there in Fort Worth, so I'm sure nobody will make too big of a deal out of that either, but we'll take a look at the SEC and where Arkansas stands in the standings. Get it? An SEC football coming up next here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, so stay with us. All right, all you Razorback fans out there, I got to tell you about the GameTime app. A lot of you are going to be looking for tickets to this weekend's game against Ole Miss, and you're like, man, I feel good about this. I want to be out there at the butt crack of dawn, start tailgating. I want to get in the game, get some tickets. Well, luckily for you, you got the GameTime app. If you download the GameTime app today, you can get all the tickets for not just sports, but for concerts, for comedy shows, for theater shows, for everything. And you can get it anywhere. Like, for instance, the Arkansas TCU game down there in Fort Worth, you can get tickets to that too, all with the GameTime app. It has the best type of thing where you have the seat views. You can see a panoramic view of your seat from the app before you buy. It's also the lowest price guarantee, or GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference if you find it somewhere else that's better. And your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the entire ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime Picks. Download the GameTime app and create an account and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the GameTime app today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, folks. On Mondays, I always like to look back on the SEC and what was going on and the craziness from it. And boy, it continues to be crazy, man. It continues to be crazy, but fun. I'm enjoying it because we know Arkansas is above 500 in SEC play. Okay, they are going to go into the month of November above 500 in SEC play. Can't be mad about that. But right now, Texas A&M just destroyed. It's just crazy. They destroyed LSU. LSU was up big on them, and they came back and they whooped them 38-23. So the only undefeated team remaining in the SEC is Texas A&M. It pains me. I hate that, but you got to give credit where credit is due. LSU was the best team that they faced this year, and they took care of business. And they got a pretty good setup too, because they have South Carolina next, but South Carolina's not good. New Mexico State at Auburn, which I know they got a big win against Kentucky, which Kentucky is woof. But they're not good. And then they have Texas at the end. So like A&M, realistically, I hate to say this. But Texas A&M, realistically, at the end of the season, could be the team that goes to an SEC title game. Like even if they lose to Texas, I guess we'll see how the rest of the SEC looks and how the tiebreakers would go. But they could end up facing Texas again in the SEC championship if Texas even wins out and beats them. So either way, Texas A&M above all else. And then you got Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, LSU, all with one loss. Georgia at 4-1, Texas and Tennessee at 3-1. I heard that one loss too was for Tennessee. LSU at 3-1. So Arkansas comes into play at 3-2. And they're tied with Alabama. Just like we all thought. But if you want to look at it logistically, that's tied for fourth in the SEC right now. Arkansas and Alabama are tied for fourth. And, there's still a lot of time to play, but it's looking pretty good right now. Missouri at 2-2. Man, Missouri sucks. And I know their quarterback got hurt and everything, but they had the easiest schedule in the world, right? And then the two somewhat tough teams that they had to play in A&M and Bama this year destroyed them. Bama skunked them 34-0. And then A&M beat them 41-10. So I think they're starting to become a fraudulent team, and people are starting to realize it. Ole Miss is at 2-2. They've lost to LSU barely. Should have won that game. And then they lost to Kentucky, which is so strange because Kentucky's terrible. So Ole Miss is a weird team to figure out, but it kind of goes back to it, though. Ole Miss has the only quality team they've played this year has been LSU. I mean, if you think about it, Ole Miss has played Kentucky. They lost, but they played Auburn. They did win that one. They played Oklahoma. They did win that one. They played South Carolina, and they did win that one. So if you look at all those games, or no, did they play Auburn? Sorry, no. Sorry, they didn't play Auburn. But the thing is that their SEC wins, or 2 SEC wins, are against Oklahoma and South Carolina, 2 of the bottom teams in the SEC. So they've been struggling a lot too. Shout out to Vanderbilt, though. Gave Texas a run for their money, man. Vandy may be the real deal Holyfield. They got Auburn, South Carolina, and then LSU and Tennessee left. So they could beat Auburn. They could beat Auburn, beat South Carolina. Absolutely. But they're sitting at 5-3, 2-2 in SEC play. And I mean, their only losses, Missouri, they lost by 3, should have won that game. And then Georgia State, that's going to be the weirdest thing. They lost to Georgia State. They're this close to being undefeated. I hate to be that way to Vanderbilt, but I'm happy for them. It's a cool story. It's a really cool story. So, but Arkansas is kind of the second half part right now. I mean, if they're able to beat Ole Miss to get to 4-2 in SEC play, folks. Just looking at the scores this weekend, or looking at the schedule this weekend, and what the SEC teams and who could kind of drop below Arkansas with a win. I mean, it could absolutely happen. Let's see, you got Vanderbilt and Auburn. That won't change anything. Oklahoma's playing Maine. Okay. Georgia and Florida playing each other. That won't change anything. Although it would tie you with Georgia if Florida won, but they're not going to do that. South Carolina, Texas A&M, that's not going to have any impact on you. And Tennessee and Kentucky's not going to have any. Well, if Kentucky beats Tennessee, then it'll be an impact. But yeah, here's the thing. Kind of a crappy weekend of SEC games, to be honest. In fact, it's pretty trash, which even pisses me off more that they did not make Arkansas and Ole Miss a night game. But what are you going to do? Still, Arkansas's in great shape, folks. I'm not going to be mad about it. Going into November, above 500 record in SEC play, I'll take it. I'll take it all day long. Appreciate everybody listening in and watching in the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Neighbors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. We'll see you then.